Welcome, tankers, to the Ground Nation Guide for War Thunder. In this episode, we'll be going over the Japanese tank tree. The full playlist is linked in the description.
The Japanese tank tree is arguably one of the most overlooked trees in the game, not just in-game, but also real life. During the Second World War, Japan focused primarily on their naval forces, with the majority of resources going into ships and naval aircraft, and not much attention going into their tank program. After the war ended, however, the Japanese tank program started back up due to regional conflicts, such as the Korean War. At first, the majority of their arsenal was filled with imported American tanks, but over time, domestic designs began to develop. As a result of this, the tech tree is one of the smallest in the game, with only 4 lines, along with having a pretty clear split between the World War II and the post-war. Those lines in question are a light and medium tank line, a tank destroyer line, as well as an anti-air line. The majority of Japanese tanks are glass cannons, with a heavy emphasis on keeping a safe distance and engaging enemies from afar. Armor is something that you won't find very easily, but mobility is usually decent. In some cases, even good enough to fit into the flanker role. Unlike with most other trees, you have to play with a high degree of caution when using them. First up, we have Tier 1, which contains some interesting vehicles to say the least. In the light tank line, we have the Ha-Go, the Ke-Ni, and the Ka-Mi. All 3 of these tanks are decently fast, lack any proper armor, and carry a 37mm cannon of varying models. The first of which, the infamous Ha-Go, carries the Type 94, a gun that is so bad that the tank is locked until you reach Tier 2. Thankfully, the latter 2 vehicles get the improved Type 100 and Type 1 variants, which have much better penetration. As for mobility, like I said, all 3 are quite good, like most other tanks at this tier. The Ka-Mi is the slowest of the bunch, however, as well as being quite bulky as a result of its amphibious design. In all honesty, the Ke-Ni is the only decent one out of the bunch, with its low profile and great gun depression. But it's still not amazing compared to other nations' contemporaries. My advice is just to skip these 3 tanks and try some of the other ones until you get to rank 2. The medium tank line contains the Igoko, the Chiha, and the Hoi. As if the light tanks weren't bad enough, the first 2 mediums are just complete dog water. The Igo doesn't even have good mobility, but at least the Chiha has a decent top speed. Firepower wise, they get a slight upgrade with the 57mm heat shells, but they're still far from competitive. The Hoi is the only tank up to scratch, with good mobility and an actually usable cannon and some half decent armor. Its APHE shell, while lacking in penetration, has an obscene amount of explosive filler, so if you manage to penetrate an enemy, they'll go up like fireworks. However, it's still fairly outclassed when compared to other nations' tanks though, so like with the rest of the early mediums, stick to the support role. In the tank destroyer line, we have some vehicles that are actually pretty fun to use, with the Ho-Ro and the Ro-Go Experimental. These 2 are modified variants of the Chiha and the Ro-Go, and they carry a 150mm howitzer and a 120mm naval cannon respectively. As you might expect, guns of that caliber combined with this low over BR makes for some really funny moments, as you can turn any tank to ash with a single shot. Armor is severely lacking on both though, and their long reloads leave them quite vulnerable, which is why you should stick with your teammates and provide heavy fire support. As long as you get the hang of the ballistics, you should rack up a nice amount of kills with either one. Lastly, in the SPA line, we have the Type 94 and the Tase. The former is reminiscent of the Soviet milk trucks, while the latter is built upon the chassis of the Ke-Ni. While their armor may be abysmal, their mobility and firepower are definitely not. With good top speeds and the 20mm Type 98 autocannon, similar to the German flak panzers, you can absolutely shred enemy light tanks to pieces with this gun. But if you get spotted, a couple of machine gun rounds will take you out. Learn the ways of the rat and zoom around the battlefield, avoiding enemy detection and blasting anything you see. Coming up next is Tier 2, which thankfully has some more usable vehicles this time around. In the medium tank line, we have the Chiha Kai and the Chihe, with Kai meaning improved in Japanese. You should know what to expect with the former. It's mounted on the same hull as the original Chiha, but with a much better 47mm Type 1 cannon. The Chihe looks and plays very similarly to the Chiha Kai, but with double the armor, meaning you'll finally be able to withstand heavy machine gun rounds. Isn't that awesome? Like their Tier 1 counterparts, they have excellent gun depression and quick reload rates, and with the improved firepower, they're decent in the support role. Again though, don't expect anything crazy from them. Other nations have better tanks at these tiers. The Tank Destroyer line contains the Ho-Ni 1 and 3, as well as the Chiha long gun. All three of these tanks are built on the Chiha chassis, meaning pretty much no armor, but decent enough mobility. Their main differences are in firepower. The Ho-Ni 1 packs a 75mm Type 90, the Ho-Ni 3 carries the Type 3 variant of the same caliber, while long gun, as you guessed it, carries quite a long gun, with a 120mm naval cannon. The first two tanks are quite similar, their main differences being that the latter has 2 extra crew members, a slightly shorter reload, and some extra armor plates. They're good at close to medium range, but since they are casemates, having some allies close by is a good idea. The Chiha long gun, on the other hand, is just the definition of overkill. Its massive naval gun makes it a humongous target for tanks and aircraft alike, and its long reload and exposed crew members make it quite easy to kill. If you manage to shoot first though, the enemy will feel the wrath of the Imperial Japanese Navy and get wiped off the map. Stick to the heavy fire support role and help out your allies. For the anti-air line, we have the M16 and the Soki. The M16 is identical to its American counterpart, and as such has everything an SPA needs. Great mobility, plenty of guns, and a fast fire rate. The quad 50 cal setup might not be the best against tanks, but against planes, it'll absolutely shred anything it faces. Just keep your belts in check, as it has a decently long reload. The Soki, on the other hand, sacrifices some of its fire rate for even more firepower, taking the Tase and making it even better with an additional 20mm cannon. At this increased BR, it's not the best against tanks, but with double the cannons, you'll have an easier time against aircraft. If you're not a huge fan though, just stick with the tried and true M16. Next up, we have Tier 3, which features some of the last Imperial Japanese tanks in the tree, and the start of the American imports. The light tank line only contains one tank, the M24 Chaffee. The Chaffee is a prime example of a light reconnaissance tank, with great mobility, a decent cannon, and pretty much no armor. With its punchy 75mm cannon, you can reliably take down enemies from the sides, and thanks to its great top speed, flanking is fairly easy. Scout and ambush your opponents, but be careful not to get spotted yourself. In the medium tank line, we have the Chi-Nu, Chi-To, and Chi-To Late, as well as the Chi-Ri. All of these vehicles share quite similar designs, with a big emphasis on firepower at the cost of armor, with some decent mobility as well. The Chi-Nu is the slowest of them all, with a mere 240 horsepower engine, but it makes up for it thanks to its 75mm Type 3 cannon. Compared to the dumpster fire of the previous guns, this one is a welcome surprise for sure. The two Chi-Tos take it a step further with the improved Type 2, carrying some of the best guns at their BR, with both solid penetration and a decent amount of explosive filler in each shell. The two variants play identically. The late model just has more of a streamlined turret design and a slightly more angled hull. The Chi-Ri, however, goes balls to the wall with a secondary 37mm cannon, as well as an autoloader for its primary cannon, which is unheard of at this battle rating. The 37mm can be used to take out barrels or tracks or to bait the enemy out, while the 75mm can absolutely decimate enemies with a mere 4 seconds between each shot. That's for only 3 shells though. After that, you have to refill the first order ammo rack, which takes quite a while. None of these tanks have that much armor to speak of either, only featuring thin and flat metal plates all around them. But thankfully, their great firepower and surprisingly decent gun depression angles allow you to use them from a great distance. As you might expect, a more conservative playstyle is recommended, so get to a vantage point and enjoy one-tapping unsuspecting enemies. Next, in the tank destroyer line, we have the NATO and the M44. The NATO is like a larger and slower M3 GMC with practically no armor but an amazing gun, that being the 75mm Type 1. It can wipe out anything at its BR, but only if you use it carefully. Keep your distance and snipe enemies from afar. The M44 is, say it with me now, an American self-propelled howitzer with a 155mm derp gun. Get close, shoot the enemy, big boom, long reload, yada yada, you get the point. Lastly, for SPAAs, we have the M19 and M42, a pair of American imports. If you've watched the first episode, you'll know the deal with these two. Great at anti-tank work, but difficult to use against aircraft. The dual 40mm boffer setup is quite devastating against ground vehicles at this BR, thanks to their decent penetration and high fire rates. But compared to the M16, you might have a hard time hitting aircraft. The M19 is built on the chassis of the Chaffee, while the M42 is built on the Walker Bulldog, making it a lot faster. But like I said, it's better against ground targets. If you have a crew slot to spare, it's a good idea to bring both the M16 and one of these two, for anti-air and anti-tank purposes respectively. Now, we move on to Tier 4, which contains some Cold War designs. And this is the turning point from still somewhat balanced tanks to being very min-maxed. In the light tank line, we have, oddly enough, the M4A376, as well as the M41A1, the Type 60 SPRG, and the Type 60 ATM. A tank tree wouldn't be complete without a Sherman, and Japan is no exception. The EZ-8 is a solid jack of all trades with its 76mm cannon, as well as decent mobility when spaded. Against Tigers and T-3485s, it's not going to withstand many shots, so stick to supporting or medium range sniping. The Walker Bulldog is a more interesting vehicle though, with even less armor but much better mobility. With its top speed of 70 km/h or 44 mph, you can easily flank the entire enemy team with time to spare. Not only that, its 76mm cannon can fire APDS rounds with up to 300mm of penetration. It's a prime example of a flanker, and quite a fun one too. If you're looking for something more unconventional though, look no further than the Type 60 self-propelled recoilless gun. The SPRG is a tiny rat with great mobility and firepower, with two recoilless rifles firing heat grenade rounds. Due to its short stature, it can hide in places the enemy wouldn't even think of checking, and then take them out with its dual 106mm rifles. However, pretty much any gun can take it out, so you have to play it very carefully. Finally, we have the Type 60 ATM, and it's definitely more challenging than its namesake. It features two ATGM launchers, and while that may sound good on paper, they fire the single slowest missiles in the game. And to make matters worse, said missiles are keyboard guided and fired in an arc. Armor is non-existent, but mobility is acceptable, and with its optics being above the tank itself, it can be a stealthy sniper. Like the British Swingfire, it takes a lot of patience to play this thing, but its missiles are quite powerful for its BR. It's best used in big maps, so find some place to hide and pray the enemy doesn't see you. The medium tank line features the first post-war indigenous designs, with the STA 1, 2, and 3, as well as the Type 61. These four are pretty much the definition of glass cannons. They carry some very powerful guns for their BR, but any tank they face can penetrate their armor from any distance or angle. The STA 1 and 2 pack the 90mm M3A1 cannon, the same as on the M46 Patton, as well as having a crazy good optical zoom and decent mobility. The Type 61 and the STA-3, on the other hand, have a slightly improved gun, a better engine, and a rangefinder, as well as an autoloader on the latter. The stock grind on all four can be rather painful as their mobility is subpar without upgrades, and their heat FS shells are locked behind 2 to 4 tiers of modifications. Nevertheless, they can help you learn how to make the most of a glass cannon by sniping and flanking, which will definitely come in handy later down the tree. In the tank destroyer line, we have the M36 and the Type 75 SPH. The Japanese M36 is pretty much just the American M36B2, but with a better engine. Even its stock shells are deadly at its BR, and once you unlock its heat FS, you can be especially dangerous. Its armor is paper thin though, so make use of its decent mobility to get a good sniping spot. The Type 75 self-propelled howitzer, on the other hand, carries a 155mm anti-everything cannon with a 10-second autoloader. Each shell is packed with enough explosives to send any tank flying, but you have to place your shots well, otherwise you'll only take out their tracks or barrel. Its stock shell is also pretty slow, but thankfully there's an unlockable round with improved ballistics. It's actually very similar to the M109, so either stay back and provide heavy fire support, or use its mobility to play like a heavy ambusher. Lastly, for SPAAs, we have the SCB-1-2. This thing is a bit of an oddball. It's an amphibious armored personnel carrier with the same 20mm cannon as the VII-VIII. You probably already get the deal at this point. No armor, good mobility, and a decent gun. The 20mm has a very high rate of fire as well as great horizontal traverse, making it a solid anti-air weapon. Against ground vehicles, it has a decent HVAP and APDS belt that can pen the side of tanks. Overall, it's a solid multi-purpose vehicle. Just keep your ammo count in check, as you can run out pretty quickly. Up next are tiers 5 and 6, which is where the post-war side of the tree truly starts to shine. In the light tank line, we have the Type 87 RCVs and the Type 89. The two reconnaissance combat vehicles are built for pure speed, with everything else being a mere afterthought. Both have a top speed of 100 km per hour, that being 62 miles per hour, but with absolutely no armor and only an autocannon for offense. That being said, their excellent mobility is more than enough to flank anything you face, and their weapons are enough to penetrate the sides of most tanks. Interestingly enough though, it's the prototype variant that has a stabilizer, so the production variant is stuck with a bouncy suspension. On the flip side, we also have the Type 89 IFV, a more conventional light tank. While it's not as fast as the Type 87s, its mobility is still very respectable. Along with this, it also has access to thermals, a laser rangefinder, as well as 2 ATGM launchers. As far as IFVs go, the Type 89 is a pretty solid one, and it'll make a decent addition to your lineup. The medium tank line turns into an MBT line with the M47, STB-2, and the Type 74 series. The Patton 2 is a run-of-the-mill jack-of-all-trades medium tank with decent mobility, armor, and firepower. With its optical rangefinder and decent heat FS shell, it can be a good sniper, but it's nothing out of the ordinary. The domestic designs are much more interesting. The STB-2 and the Type 74s are quite similar to the Leopard series in many aspects, with the same 105mm L7 cannon, similarly great mobility, and not much armor. They take the best parts of the STAs and make them even better, with access to laser rangefinders, 2-plane stabilizers, and better ammunition. Another neat addition is their hydropneumatic suspension systems, which allow you to use terrain elements like Hill's Sheer Advantage. While their armor is not great, they are sturdier than the Leopard ones, so you might bounce a shot or two at long ranges. The STB-2 is the prototype model with access to only APDS, while the C variant has heat FS as well as slightly better turret armor. The E and F models, on the other hand, can fire some powerful APFSDS shells, which come at the cost of a higher BR. Like with the tier 5 tanks, they're all great vehicles for long distance sniping, especially with these new upgrades. They are, however, still glass cannons, so do your best to not get spotted and stay on the move as much as you can. In the tank destroyer line, we have the Type 99 Hori production and the Type 16 prototype, 3 vastly different vehicles. The Type 99 is a direct upgrade from the Type 75 SPH, with a much longer cannon and a faster reload. The extended barrel gives each shell a much better muzzle velocity as well, which makes long-range shots a lot easier. Other than that though, it's a very similar vehicle. The Hori, on the other hand, is comparable to the German Ferdinand, being the only Imperial Japanese tank above tier 3. Its design is heavily focused on firepower and armor. Even at this battle rating, it can withstand a lot of shells from the front, and its 105mm cannon can deal some serious damage. Like with any high tier heavy though, shells like Heat FS can punch straight through its armor, so you have to play it with a high degree of caution. Unlike the Ferdinand though, the Hori is also surprisingly nimble, so you can find a decent place to snipe and keep up with the front line. A quick word of warning though, this version of the tank was never actually built, despite what its name suggests, so there's a chance that it might get removed like the other paper vehicles. Lastly, we have the Type 16 prototype, a completely different tank. This thing is pretty much just a Type 87 but bigger and with a 105mm gun instead of an autocannon. It's got everything a light tank destroyer needs: amazing mobility, a laser rangefinder, 2-plane stabilizer, Gen 3 thermals, great optics, and some powerful shells. Armor is, expectedly, very lacking, but that might just work to your advantage, considering its large and spacious design. To use it effectively, go around the map and shoot your enemies from where they least expect it, and always stay on the move. As for the SPAA line, we have the Type 87. It's very similar to the German Gepard, with the same dual 35mm cannon setup, similar mobility, and a comparable hull. It has a couple extra gadgets at its disposal though, namely a laser warning system, laser rangefinder, TV detection, as well as the hydrogen pneumatic suspension. Like its German contemporary, the gun tank can make quick work of any aircraft that flies close. Against tanks, it has a great APDS spell, albeit in very limited quantity, and an AP shell that offers decent-ish penetration. Overall, it's an excellent anti-air vehicle and a welcome addition to your Tier 6 lineup. Finally, we arrive at Tiers 7 and 8, featuring the top tier lineup of the Japanese tank tree. The light tank line contains the ICV and TKX prototypes. The infantry combat vehicle is essentially a Type 16, but with a 30mm autocannon, some add-on armor, a laser warning system, as well as a tracking radar for use against aircraft. Its fire rate might be slower than other vehicles in its role, so you might get outclassed against other IFVs, but its APFSDS belt is more than enough to deal with enemies from the side. The TKXP, meanwhile, is a prototype of what would become the TKX in the main battle tank line. We'll discuss it further in the next line, but all you need to know is that this prototype variant plays exactly the same as its successor, with just a less powerful APFSDS round, but at a lower BR. In the MBT line, we have the Type 90s, the Type 10, and the TKX, the pinnacle of this tree. These four tanks are similar to the German Leopard series, but with a very special gimmick, a 4-second reload rate. They can fire nearly twice as fast as some of its opponents, which gives it a massive advantage in firefights. Not only that, but they all feature hydrogen pneumatic suspension systems as well, which gives them an edge on hilly terrain. Compared to the Type 74s, the Type 90s have much better mobility, the aforementioned reload rate, a laser warning system, and access to better darts. The 90 and 90B are nearly identical, just with a lack of dozer blade on the latter. The Type 10 and TKX, on the other hand, can carry the excellent Type 10 dart, better optics, as well as a reverse gearbox which increases its mobility even more. That being said, armor is still pretty scarce in all four, and with only 3 crew members, they're prone to getting one-shotted. At this point though, you should be used to the speedy glass cannon playstyle, something all 4 vehicles excel at, so make use of their great firepower and amazing reloads to wreak havoc on the enemy team. Next, in the Tank Destroyer line, we have the Type 16 production variant. It's practically the same as the prototype variants, but with a slightly different design, as well as access to the Type 93 APFSDS round, which boasts some better penetration. In most applications though, it's the same as its predecessor, so turn on some Eurobeat and glide across the battlefield. And last but not least, we have the SPAAs with the Type 93 and 81C. The Type 93 is the single fastest land vehicle in the game, with a top speed of a whopping 125 km per hour or 78 miles per hour, mainly because it's just a Toyota mega cruiser with 8 man pads strapped to its back. The missiles it carries are similar to the Stingers, but with a shorter guidance time. It's honestly more of a meme vehicle than anything, since it doesn't have a search radar and no defensive capabilities, but at least it has access to active scouting. As for the Type 81, it's a truck-based anti-air system. It's pretty good at taking down aircraft. Its missiles have decent range, pull, as well as speed, but the lack of any kind of search radar is a severe handicap. Like the other large anti-airs, park in a place with natural cover but also good visibility, and fire at enemies you see. Okay, so it's currently May 30th, like 2 days before the video goes up, and the dev server for the Leviathans update just started. The only new take Japan gets is the Tansam Kai target acquisition and designation system. It's pretty much just the Type 81, but with a separate radar vehicle. So essentially its biggest drawback gets solved and actually becomes kind of one of its strong suits with quite a long detection range and launch range. I can't, however, talk about its in-game performance since the current dev build is unfinished and pretty buggy, but when the patch drops, you can definitely expect a pretty strong anti-air missile system. Finally, we reach the conclusion. First, starting with the pros and cons. An obvious pro of the Japanese tank tree is the great firepower found on nearly all of their vehicles. Almost any tank at tier 3 and above will feature great cannons that perform well at long ranges. Not only that, but mobility is also pretty solid on most of their vehicles as well. These two factors combined make Japanese tanks excellent choices for the flanker sniper playstyle. Having said that, armor is not something you'll find in this tree, with the exception of a handful of tanks. Almost all the vehicles are are glass cannons, so you'll have to play more carefully compared to other nations. Another con is the horrendous starter vehicles. Even if you're experienced, the tier 1 and early tier 2 tanks can be very frustrating, and it only starts to get better around tier 3. Lastly, we have the size of the tree, which is kind of a double-edged sword. It's one of the smallest tank trees in the game, which means you'll grind it pretty quickly, but that also leads to limited lineups and gaps in BRs. Next up are the rankings. For playstyles, the Japanese are mainly focused on sniping, with flanking and supporting being viable options as well. Brawling is definitely not something you'll be doing much though, apart from a couple tanks. For the ranks, the tree has a very rough start with arguably some of the worst tanks in the game, but gets much better as the tree goes on. The Japanese air tree is quite large, but their close air support is notably lacking until the later jets. Anti-air is in a similarly sorry state, with a remarkably few SPA with a mix of both good and bad ones. Lastly, for the big question, should you play the Japanese tank tree? If you're a beginner, it's not recommended. Not only will the early ranks make you rip your hair out, the Japanese playstyle is not exactly suited for newer players either. Sniping and flanking require a decent bit of map knowledge and experience, so you're better off with a safer pick like the big three. If you're looking for a new nation to grind though, Japan is a decent choice. Their tanks provide a unique challenge that requires you to play more tactically, and due to the small size of the tree, you can climb up the ranks fairly quickly. And while there's a fair bit of copy-pasted American tanks, the rest of the tree will still be a fresh experience. And if you're just looking to have some fun, Japan is a great choice. While a lot of their tanks aren't the most competitive, you can rack up a lot of kills if you know what you're doing. For tank recommendations, SK suggests the Chito and the Type 60 SPRG. However, I recommend the Chiri 2 and the Type 61. The Chiri 2's autoloader really catches people off guard with how quickly you can reload, and the Type 61's combination of a rangefinder and heat FS makes you the bane of all heavy tanks at its BR. And that's it for the Japanese tree, which, compared to other nations, looks very much like a bonsai tree. But it still has its quirks, even for the small size it is. I hope you'll find the same joy as I found when playing. Ja, mata ne!